Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, however, wherever, whenever you're listening. This is the Root for Wisconsin show, episode 166. First one of 2025, first one in quite some time. It is our 2025 NFL Draft Special, which, glad to be here. Cannot be more excited about this. Just on top of the actual draft itself, we're huge draft nerds, but it's in Green Bay. It's in our city. This is so cool to see everything that's going on in this city. I'll get to actually be down there on Saturday, but we'll talk more about that a little later. But regardless, when I talk about we, I mean me. I'm Eric Fisher, Big E, doing the ones and twos. We've got Dylan Schritt tonight. Dylan, how are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right.
It has been entirely too long since we have done this. That's just the way life goes sometimes. So
it is, yeah.
It is, but we have an episode coming up, a fun one here tonight. We may get some joining in within the next, few minutes. I don't know. We'll see. It's kind of the joys of doing this and why we haven't done one since December, because life's a bitch. Plain and simple.
It sure is. Is.
With that said, do you want to give quick shout-outs here? Because, again, it's been a while. We have some business to take care of. Shout-out to Tyson Holla, our Fantasy Football League winner. And shout-out to our NCAA Tournament Challenge winner, which I'll find here in a second. Our winner in the Root for Wisconsin Bracket Challenge this year was Jabberjaw Betts. Don't know who that actually is, but congrats to Jabberjaw Betts, one of, looks like about 8 players who had the Florida Gators winning the national championship. So congrats to them with 1,680 points, so 1,680 in the top 0.8% of all NCAA brackets on ESPN. So congrats to them.
Shout out to you.
As for the folks on our show, Shauna did place the best. She was tied for 8th with 1,350. She did have the Gators winning as well. I think that would put me in second. Actually, Sean and I tied for second with 930. And Justin in 35th with 670. I might have missed you, Dylan, so I do apologize. I got to figure out where you were.
I'm way at the bottom. Check way at the bottom.
Oh, you were 21st, so actually you finished ahead of me and Sean.
Okay, well.
So Shauna, Dylan, Sean and Eric tied, and then Justin way at the bottom.
My bracket did not start off well, but I must have finished strong.
So that's kind of what's been going on, at least from a business standpoint. We've had a couple RPW shows that we've gotten to go to. Another one coming up at the end of May 31st, from Wapaka RPW Homecoming 2. Should be a great show, a loaded show with plenty of talent at that show. We will be there. A couple cage matches going on. Absolutely stoked to be there. I believe it'll be for sure myself. I know Shauna's looking forward to it. Ramsey, new dad. Ramsey planning to be there.
Very nice.
Maybe he'll bring the baby. We don't know yet. Ramsey's a parent now. What else has happened? I think that's about it for big news. But Ramsey is a parent now as well, so I can put that out there. Everything is public there on their end. So congrats to him and the missus on their news. But yeah, so here we are. Episode 166, our first of 2025. Dylan, how have you been doing? What's going on, man?
Oh, man. It's been a year. No, not much. Just one day at a time, working, sleeping, working again.
I feel that in my soul.
Mm-hmm.
Every part of me. I feel that. I really do.
Yeah. Days get long. Time off gets short, but such is life.
Such is life indeed. But yes, we have plenty of fun here tonight as we talk NFL draft, as we talk a little bit of Bucks, we talk maybe some Brewers if we have time for it, but pretty much our big focus tonight probably going to be the draft with it coming up, actually starting by the time this releases tonight.
Mm-hmm.
It's finally draft time. The metaphorical red carpet is rolled out here in Green Bay. Actually drove down that way here this afternoon. We had to go run an errand for my brother, and yeah, it's crazy. It finally feels real, you know. Like here in, I don't know, Dylan, when the last time you've gotten to Green Bay was, but it finally feels real. Where, you know, for the last month or so, there's been like traffic closures so they can work on the stage, and it's been being built and things like that. But it really hit today. So yeah, definitely looking forward to our hometown here, or home area, being the center of the sports world for the next
Next couple days, yeah.
72 hours, really. So, all right. Well, now that the pleasantries are out of the way, want to get into our typical show, talking about what we had rooted for, and Dylan, just anything that's kind of been going on over the last, I don't know, 4 months and change.
Jeez,
Really been rooting for.
It's a long time to summarize. I guess keeping it in the world of sports. Nina's Ali Zybel is now a national champion with UConn, which is pretty cool. Let's see, we got Bucks basketball.
Also want to shout out KK Arnold from Germantown
as well. Yep.
On that team.
Yep. So we got the last two Wisconsin Misses basketball are now national champions, all in one shot. We got Duke's Con Knipple declaring for the draft. Whether he's actually going to stick with it or not, yet to be determined, but he did declare. He still has time to pull out, so we shall see what he does there. Bucks basketball, though we're not real positive on them, it's still going on. Brewers are doing well. Draft day in Green Bay. I mean, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, it really is, and a couple other notes, just kind of catching up as people who follow along with our socials and everything like that. We had our annual high school basketball, girls state basketball media coverage that Shauna and I took part of, and Shauna did such a great job with the TikToks that she does for those and the highlight videos. Got to see a couple future Phoenix in action with the Ketterhagen twins out of the Division III champion Oostburg. I think they're the Buccaneers. If I'm wrong on that, I'm sorry. But Oostburg, the reigning now Division III champs, as Addie and Riley Ketterhagen, who are going to both be Phoenix, not this coming season, but the following one after that. Got a chance to talk to Coach Kale Carius at that. She and her coaching staff sat behind Shauna and I for a lot of the event. So it was really cool getting to chat with her a little bit as she was taking in some basketball, a little recruiting, everything like that, everything you can imagine. And then as things are happening there, she had gotten a contract extension in that time. Her first of what probably is now 5 transfer portal commitments. One still pending yet, as it has not been officially announced by the player, but pretty good idea on who that is. But some big names coming back through Green Bay, some local names that Green Bay and Wisconsin basketball fans would recognize. Probably none bigger than Gracie Gresh, the star of the Notre Dame Academy Tritons basketball team. She was a freshman at Wisconsin after playing her high school ball at Notre Dame. She had initially committed and played for a year with the Badgers. Decided she wanted to come back home and play for the Phoenix. So she kind of headlines the class, but little horizon on horizon crime as the Phoenix do grab Maddie Skorupski out of Oakland. And some rumors floating around that I'm not going to address yet because they haven't been officially announced. But possibly some more horizon on horizon league transfer action as well. I'll leave it at that. As for the men's side, not quite the season that they wanted. The women had a great season 4 Green Bay, another return trip to the NCAA tournament. Men had a rougher go about it. 21 game lose streak, one of the longest in the nation, but did end up winning two of their final 4 conference games. So kind of got things down the stretch. Just a bad history, with injuries, bad luck all the way around, really, for injury there at that program. A lot of people, it's fun to make fun of Coach Gottlieb for, being the radio host, but program is in good hands, if you ask me. I really do believe that, and I really can't imagine many better people at the helm of it than Coach Gottlieb and staff he has. They've gotten a couple additions out of the transfer portal on their end as well. Most recently, LeBron Thomas, which if you kind of follow along with Doug Gottlieb, it's really funny given LeBron James's kind of beef with Gottlieb.
Mm-hmm.
So Green Bay got LeBron. Kind of a fun spin on that whole situation, but one of 2 official commitments that have been announced by the team for guys who are coming in through the portal. There is another one that's still yet to be officially announced by the team who had signed on the same day as LeBron. So that one coming probably in the upcoming day or so, as LeBron's was officially announced today, even though the verbal commitment came over the weekend. So look forward to seeing what a full offseason will do for Coach Gottlieb. That's really been where a lot of my effort has gone, is seeing everything happening with the Phoenix and doing my best to cover it, as well as some Packers and Brewers action as well. Since we last recorded, we did say goodbye to the legend that is Bob Uecker. And the Packers were in the playoffs and then eventually eliminated in the first round to the eventual Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles. And yeah, like you said, Dylan, the Bucks are doing their thing. So a lot of positives in that time, but we also do need to talk about the negatives. Tyler Hero, noogie of the last 4 months. So I'm going to see if there's anything that's really got me fired up that has happened in that last 4 months. So I'll let you lead this one. Or anything that really has tripped your trigger for 4 months now.
I when I get angry, I'm more of a prisoner of the moment type. So, my current frustrations are Milwaukee Bucks going down 0-2 to Indiana after ending the regular season on an 8-game winning streak. I just struggle to figure out why they struggle so much. You have one of, if not the best player on the planet right now, currently averaging in the playoffs so far, I believe he's averaging like 35, 17, and 4. Just stupid numbers. Absolutely stupid numbers. 17 rebounds a game. Look at 35 points. That's Wilt Chamberlain type stuff. And they're down 0-2. Lillard came back after his injury, and I was expecting way more of him, but for how hyped up his return was, he really laid an egg.
I will give him a little benefit of doubt. That is a
Yes.
hard,
Yep.
a lot of injuries you can kind of start rehabbing and coming back from.
Yep. This
Blood
isn't really one
clots,
of them.
deep vein thrombosis. I mean, that's some serious health shit, and
Yes.
that's not one you can really work out with. You kind of
No.
have it, and then you don't, and you're not really doing much. So, I kind of give him a lot of credit for getting on the floor at all. Definitely not something
Agreed.
I necessarily expected to occur.
As long as he was actually ready, because they didn't
Right.
rush it. He did. Maybe he was nervous. Maybe he wasn't 100% confident himself, and that's why he had an off game. But next games are in Milwaukee, so they got to win 4 out of the next 5. Otherwise, that's going to be a very frustrating end of the season. You go from the 2021 NBA champions to a second round exit in 22 to a pair of first round exits in 23 and 24, and now we're on pace for a third consecutive first round
Yeah,
playoff exit.
since that championship in 2021, the Bucks are 10-15 in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Which includes just one series win.
Yeah. And that was that first round in 22. I'm sorry, 21. Yeah, 22.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I definitely would agree. Definitely frustrating. If I had to pick a noogie and something
you
that
do have to pick one. So
yeah, something that's kind of had that same kind of staying power is just how snake bitten the Milwaukee Brewers started this season injury wise. I mean, at one point this offseason or this start of the regular season, they had one healthy, legitimate starting pitcher.
Mm-hmm.
It's been, and to this point, I mean, they've gotten through. It's been a patchwork job of getting one of their starters who they had signed later in spring training, kind of up to snuff with MLB speed of things. They traded for a guy in Quinn Priester. Some of these other reinforcements do seem to be coming, most notably Tobias Myers, and we're getting real close to the return of Brandon Woodruff. Within the next month or so, the anticipation is that he will be back on the mound for the big league team. He's gotten a couple of rehab starts, most notably on this last Friday, he had a rehab start for the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers up in Appleton.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, one true starter at one point after the second time through the rotation.
Yeah, that's rough.
But they have survived it. They've made the best of it. To this point, they are 13-11, which is nothing to scoff at. They're playing a really good Giants team right now. In a 4-game set, they lost game 1. They won game 2. Freddie Peralta on the bump later tonight as we record, so that game will be obviously in the books by the time we're off air and the time this episode comes out. But yeah, things kind of going in the right direction. For as bad of a first series as the team had against the Yankees, where I think their run differential was like -20. They actually do have it back positive. They are +16. Thanks in part to a game last night. They went 11-3 last night. They had a 14-1 game or 14-1 win on Easter Sunday against the A's. So a couple of really big games in there to help shift that. But yeah, no, things are going well enough for the Brewers. They are a game and a half back of the Cubs, who did have a 2-game kind of early start to the season, playing the Dodgers over in Japan before everybody else got the regular season started. So yeah, it's been a rough stretch, a brutal stretch of bad luck, but I guess kudos to them. But yeah, if these if the rest of the rotation would stay healthy, that'd be great.
Yeah, agreed.
I think that's probably my biggest headache I have in sports right now, and really can't think of anything else that's really gotten me upset about anything. Or I guess fuck Canada for the Four Nations Cup. stealing it from the
Yeah,
U.S.
they
Booting
did.
our
They did
anthem.
They did slap back after we beat them in the first game.
Yeah,
First matchup, I
overtime
should
win
say.
for them. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, I mean, things been relatively good.
Yeah, I'd have to agree.
Can't really. I mean, when a guy, to the caliber of Damian Lillard gets deep vein thrombosis and misses significant time with that, not even injury, but ailment.
Right.
So you can be upset for the Bucks, but what the hell are you gonna say?
There's context to it.
Yeah. So no, nothing really else otherwise. I mean, the lot of there's been people upset with the Packers, but we'll probably cover that pretty in depth here with our draft conversation. But um, that's kind of what's going on right now, and in positives, negatives, looking at the world of Wisconsin sports. Um, Man, if we wanted to do a Wisconsin web story of the week, there's probably a million that we've missed. But
Mm.
I'm gonna keep it draft-ish related with the favorite thing I've seen out of the draft so far, and that is for anybody who is going down to the Lambeau Field area. The Packers did install the Packer Draft House, a dive bar that they had built, dive bar atmosphere in the Lambeau Field parking lot for fans during the draft, which is, I mean, I'm sure it's a very bougie dive bar. So it's like a dive bar in name only, plus it's a pop up.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of just a cool thing in the first place. So, wanted to
Yes,
shout that
very
out.
cool.
Actually, I take that back. I have another noogie. So, this one this one's a very personal one. But man, I want to say, so a couple or mid March, Shauna and I took a kind of like a second mini honeymoon. We had like our initial one after the wedding, and we went to Kentucky to go do some. We went to some of the bourbon distilleries and uh, explored some like Louisville and the greater area. And it, first of all, absolutely gorgeous. Kentucky is beautiful. We got there before the second round of floods, which obviously thoughts and prayers to those people because it is a gorgeous area of the country. And that's never good, but when you've been there, kind of recently, it kind of puts it to your mind, and you start, having a different feeling for those affected. But yeah, so anyway, like I said, just gorgeous area of the country. Um, but on our way home, so we were out there for like a long weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and came back Monday. On Monday, we stopped in Louisville and went to the Louisville Slugger Museum, which any baseball nerd, or even if you even just kind of appreciate baseball, definitely gotta go check out. They take you through like their main MLB wood bat factory.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, really, they make all their wood bats there on site, but they kind of show you the different process between what the MLB bat would go through for these different players versus what like the ones you can buy at like Walmart or Dunham's or Dick's or Shields, whatever. And I say all this to say that one of the other things that you can do is they have like a batting cage that you can go do. And you get to use like different like signature athletes that have Louisville Slugger contract bats,
Mm-hmm.
which obviously I was going to do. It was like $2 for I think 10 balls. I'm like, yeah, that's a no-brainer. I'll use Christian Yelich's bat. No problem, no sweat. Paid the man at the thing, got the bat. First thing you notice, there is no like grip tape on it, which a lot of MLB guys don't have. Like they call it like lizard skins or whatever. I know it's a brand, but no tape
Yep.
on it. A lot of guys don't have that, so I get why that's a thing. But there's no like unless you think about it, you don't have batting gloves on you. They don't have those as an option. No pine tar. So you are just going into this batting cage. You and bat. and you wait a little bit, and you're kind of like, okay, I'm going to use this, and haven't swung a bat in a couple years. You're a little like, whatever, you're a little nervous. Step in the box, feels like home. Take a swing at the first pitch down the machine. Big cut through the fucking bat, like almost halfway down the thing. Like that, those things are slippery. And when I tell you, and I was super red in the face. So like this is probably one of my worst sports moments. But when I tell you, I didn't even like touch one of these balls, not because of the speed, but like I was so worried that the bat was gonna come out of my, like I'd start my swing and I get like halfway down, like a quarter of the way down, and I can already feel it coming out. So you're trying to like re-grip it and like still try to make contact, and then you're getting pissed off because you're not touching anything. Yeah, not my greatest baseball moment. Really disappointed, but we'll go back at some point in my life with batting gloves and get some redemption. But yeah, have some freaking tape on it. Like have some sort of grip. So you don't have idiots like me who end up throwing the thing. And I always kind of got it before. Like you watch a baseball game on TV, like you're bound to see that happen probably about once a week.
Mm-hmm.
I get it now. That's what I'm gonna say. I get it. And those guys are facing pitches a lot faster. They also almost always have batting gloves. But even to do that with batting gloves, I get it. I will never make fun of a dude for letting go of their bat on a swing. I get it. So I guess noogie to me for having this happen. Noogie to Louisville Slugger for having bats without any sort of grip option. But noogie for on like just the principle of how the bats work. I mean, like anybody who's ever given a person guff for throwing the bat on a swing, not easy. I get it.
Now you know.
So I want to give some apologies for anybody. Anytime if I've ever made fun of somebody for doing that, that's on me.
Mature of you, Eric.
Thank you. All right. So yeah, we're pretty much into our main content of our episodes and kind of looking at the world of sports. And I know we talked about the Bucks a little bit, but since we last recorded, they did kind of right the ship. I know we had last talked about how bad the season started. Obviously, they get to the playoffs. They're a 5 seed, which not ideal. You had to start on the road for 2 games going against a 4, but tough Central Division with Cleveland being the best team in the East. And then you still had, you had 4 playoff teams out of that. Detroit was a playoff team. Obviously Pacers. So you have 4 of those teams that you face regularly all in the playoffs. That's a tough one. So not really going to fault that, and probably the worst possible matchup for the Bucks to start this playoff.
Yeah, Indiana just always seems to have Milwaukee's number. Don't know what it is. They just can't beat them. Not in a 7-game series anyway. Well, again, we're only 2 games in. Crazier things have happened, but
well, you know what they say. The series doesn't start until a road team gets a win. Whether that be the Pacers taking one in Milwaukee, or Milwaukee would need to steal at least one from Indy.
Oh, they don't have a choice. They have to. They absolutely have to.
I mean, they already had to, technically.
Yeah.
7-game series, you play 3 at home, but now you for sure need one. You're gonna need 2. So you have very little wiggle room for that to occur. Yeah. The one benefit of how the NBA playoffs work is they're off for a couple days now with travel and all that, even though it's not that far from Milwaukee to Indianapolis. But they'll be back in action Friday night, 7 p.m. To anybody who actually wants to pay attention to it at that point, good for them. I mean, I know I won't be, just because I'll have other commitments going on.
Yeah, you'll be busy.
But Bucks currently sitting at a 4.5 point as a 4.5 point favorite in that one. Slight favorite in terms of outright money line. So I do like them coming back to win this one. Give Dame a couple extra days. That's a good 4-day window
Mm-hmm.
to kind of continue to get back in the swing of playing basketball again and getting in a little bit better shape and getting
Mm-hmm.
some shots up and let the nerves kind of come back. So Bucks a minus 195 favorite. So actually, despite the betting odds, it had initially started at 1.5, and as it's gone from 1.5 to 4.5. So make of that what you will, but a minus 195 money line favorite. So betting odds are looking pretty good for the Bucks. If you do want to go and join that, looks like tickets currently as low as starting at $43.
That's not bad.
To avoid the mess that is Green Bay, Wisconsin, while still taking in some sports, head on down to Milwaukee in the Deer District. But I'll ask you, Dylan, while we're still talking Bucks. What has been, they kind of righted the ship for a while there, like you said, ended the season on an 8-game win streak. What were the Bucks doing so well that they weren't at the start of the year?
I think their major issue at the start of the year, and now they're kind of getting back to it again, is just inconsistency. You really have one player on the roster that you know exactly what you're going to get out of on a given night, and that's Giannis, right? You're going to get plus or minus 30 points. You're going to get maximum defensive effort. He's going to crash the boards, and he's going to bring energy.
Mm-hmm.
I think as of late, the second most consistent player has actually been Bobby Portis. And he's the first guy off the bench. He's not even a starter. He might have to start next game just because he's the second most consistent player. Again, we're going to give Damian Lillard kind of a break here because he's been out. He's just getting back in the swing of things. So, but I mean, Kyle Kuzma, you never know what you're going to expect from him. You just never know.
Mm-hmm.
He could drop 25, or he could do what he did in game 1 and drop the literal worst possible stat line you could ever conceive from a basketball player. 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, literally nothing. In I don't even remember how many minutes he had in game 1. What, 20 something? Like around 20 minutes? I mean, how do you?
His stat line game 1 was 22 minutes, 0 for 5 from the floor, no rebounds, no assists, 2 fouls, no points.
Yeah, I mean what?
Well, and he's obviously going to attract a lot of criticism, especially just, given that he was part of the trade that moved Chris
Mm-hmm.
Middleton, which I remember saying that had to happen.
Yeah,
it gets you a healthy guy, and it gets you a guy, gets you in a position to be able to actually make moves again, especially with no draft capital. So I get why they had to move. I know it's never easy to move on from a franchise player. But you know what the other thing is here? It's that they got nothing from Taurean Prince. They had They had literally 2 starters who didn't contribute a single point. They had Brook Lopez, who did score 9 in 21 minutes, but only 9 points. And then they had Ryan Rollins start that game, who scored 5, including the game's first basket for Milwaukee. They were down 3-0 after the Pacers' first possession. Milwaukee goes down. They get a layup from him. So after, it's basically 47 other minutes of basketball, he scores 3 points. And that was a made 3 at one point in the game for 4 from 3. So you had 2 starters who didn't score. You had another bench player who's played double-digit minutes who didn't score. And then Bobby Portis, I mean, he only had 4 points. You had you had 4 players who did reach double figures, but only one starter. That's not going to work in the playoffs.
No, and I'm not sure what the fix is. It's going to be tough. If they lose this series, which it's looking like they're going to, I don't want to get ahead of myself because, like you said, series hasn't really started till a road team gets a win, but it's not looking good. You're down 0-2, but you got 2 at home, so obviously Doc's going to take the fall for this if they end up losing this series. Do they keep him on the roster or not? I don't know. If you don't, you're hiring another coach, and then you're paying 4 coaches next year. Because I think Budenholzer's I think they're paying him for next season and maybe the following one. I know they're at least paying Griffin next year. Doc, would they sign him to 4 years, 3 years, 4 years?
That sounds right.
They got $40 million invested in Doc, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're gonna. That is hypothetical, of course. If they fire him, you're bringing on a 4th coach. You're gonna have 4 coaches on payroll. That's gonna hurt. You're not gonna be able to do a whole lot. So you hope they can turn it around. You have a player like Giannis, a lot is possible. You can't really count anyone out. I mean, he could say, screw it, I'm going to go drop 50 and see what happens. You never know. They can't stop him. Indiana can't stop him. So.
Yeah, if that's kind of your strategy of let Giannis do what he wants and let the rest fall in place, obviously you're kind of hoping for a little bit better game on us, guys like Dame and, if you get Kuzma going a little bit, you need about 60, if you can count for 60-ish points on a good, even let's say 55 between him and Giannis on a regular given night, you probably need another 30 out of, any other, combination, probably about 2 or 3 guys as well. Which, for conversation's sake, game 2, Bobby Portis put up 28.
Yeah,
you're getting that almost from one guy right there. Kyle Kuzma did have 12, 9 points for KPJ. So there's options out there.
Yeah, you just got to put it together and try to do something to throw them off. But too many miscommunications on defense, and yeah, it's frustrating. But fingers crossed for game 3. Just hope they can put it together and string some wins together here.
All right, Dylan. Well, let's go from that into our NFL draft coverage in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I mean, just from a pure, let's start first. We can, we're gonna do a mock draft. I'm getting my computer pulled up on that for what we think the Packers are gonna do. But let's talk just first about it being in Green Bay. Really cool that the NFL has kind of been able to do it where, they have their obvious cities that they like to use for Super Bowls, home stadiums, warm weather, ideally for some of those both, but being able to balance that pretty well has been, being able to award the draft to cities like Green Bay, like cities too, like Detroit last year, Kansas City the year before that, has been cool to see. And yeah, now it's our turn, and like I said, it kind of hit me tonight, seeing everything up and the traffic cones to kind of guide traffic and just really everything with that. How fun this next couple days are going to be. Busy as hell for me. I'll be doing radio coverage all 3 days. First 2 from studio at the Fan, and then down on the ground on Saturday, which
Mhm.
at first I'll first say, I first thought it was gonna be all 3 days in studio, and I wasn't thrilled about that. And then come to find out, no, things changed a couple weeks back, where um, ending up down on location now for Saturday, which you kind of come of peace with that other side of things, and then um, everything changes. So
Very
uh,
exciting.
really exciting. I'm very glad to get to be able to live out, really a dream of covering an NFL event like that, and being able to metaphorically kind of brush shoulders with some of the top people out there, like the draft. ESPN's gonna have coverage there, NFL Network, and they
Hmm.
have a lot of these these high profile people still on site those days. Not quite as the level of day one, day two, but yeah, it really is a dream come true to get to cover that kind of stuff. So really looking forward to that.
I will be avoiding the area.
Don't blame you. Like I said, it was I mad at first when this happened? Absolutely. But
Hmm.
did I make pretty good quick piece of this? Also absolutely. Then when things changed again, it was a very swift uh kind of realignment.
Hmm.
So with that said, Dylan, I'm gonna share my screen for you to see. As we kind of get started here, like I said, we're gonna do a mock draft. And with that, before we begin, do want to ask you your thoughts on what Green Bay kind of needs to address in this draft.
I was a very big fan of their first round pick last year when they took Morgan, the offensive lineman.
Okay.
I think Jordan Love is one of those quarterbacks who is extremely talented, but he's not. He's very athletic. I don't think he's quite as crafty as what we've been used to
Sure.
with Aaron Rodgers, and I think our success revolves around giving him time and protection. So I don't think we need an offensive lineman, but it's never going to hurt, right? It doesn't hurt to have a better offensive line.
Hmm.
Um, I know the stereotypical Packer fan answer is always going to be forever and always going to be draft a wide receiver first round. Um, is it necessary at this point? Eh, arguably, but I think you could. I think you could better use that pick for perhaps defensive secondary. Um, I mean, there's a few different ways you could go that would all be correct. There's a few ways you could go that would be objectively incorrect, but I don't think we need to even worry about that. But um, yeah, I guess my hunch is always going to be to keep Jordan Love protected and give him time, or go defensive secondary. Feel free
Yeah,
to
I,
chime in
I
on that.
definitely think it's a cliche answer, and it almost sounds like a
Yeah, it
cop
really
out.
is.
It's one of those where you take you're kind of in a spot where you can really take based on, I don't want to say you take based on need. You take best available, but you really don't know if
Hmm.
it's gonna fall until it starts to fall.
Hmm.
Don't get me wrong. I will, I'll be the first to say, as much, given where the health of the receiver group is right now, and the relative inconsistency that the unit has faced the last couple of years, just being so
Hmm.
young. I would love to see them take that, high end stud receiver right away.
Hmm.
You have Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs, who are entering contract years, and you may not get Christian Watson until the very end of the season, if at all.
Mm-hmm.
The downside of the injury he had and it being so late in the season is you might get him right away. Start week 1 because that would be about 9 months. You may not get him until midway through. You may not get him at all. It's
Mm-hmm.
just the nature. Everybody responds differently to that type of surgery. And obviously it depends on how much there's other damage in there and
Mm-hmm.
any number of effects. But
No point in rushing it. No point in rushing it.
I also really see this as there's really only one first round caliber receiver that actually fits that role.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think a lot of people kind of get lost in. And, I'll be the first, I think there's going to be a lot of probably pissed off Packer fans after night 1 because I think a lot of people, do want them to trade up. They do want to go get this one receiver. His name's Ted McMillan out of Arizona. Dude is a freak. He's, his comps, any comp you look at, it's either Mike Evans, Drake London,
Mm-hmm.
Higgins. These are top receivers. But, unless they trade way up, it's going to be a tough sell. Not saying that they won't. I mean, Mark Murphy and company definitely have a way to thrill fans. And what bigger way than to trade way up in the draft to go get a guy that the fans are going to just adore in your home city, make a lot of noise, get that, pick that you get your guy, right? But to that end as well, when I look at, the team needs, like I said, he's the only one in the first round that really fits. It's a lot of slot receivers in this draft that are
Mm-hmm.
kind of at that top tier. So when it doesn't happen, and even in the first 2 rounds, there's probably gonna be pissed off people, but you have to take it for what it's worth and based on fit and need.
Mm-hmm.
That's all said. If again, we're gonna run one simulation. We're gonna use Pro Football Sports Network, which has been one of my go-tos the last several years. It has gotten us actually at least one correct Packer every single year we've used it
Mm-hmm.
for the last 3 years. So, 2 years ago it was Devontae Wyatt. 3 years ago it was Kingsley Enagbare. Last year it was Jacob Monk. So this is a great tool. It is one algorithm. There's you go to any other mock draft site, there's gonna be different algorithms, different player rankings, but this is the one that we've kind of used. And then we'll see. The board can fall different every time. I
Mm-hmm.
don't typically make trades in these either when I do these. I like
Mm-hmm.
staying just kind of put and seeing how the board falls. Offensive line, I think, the Packers did go add Aaron Banks in free agency. It was a very kind of under the radar move that a lot of people didn't maybe like at first because it was a lot of money. Packers still do have about $25-30 million in cap space. So there was room for them to make that initial move. I like the move a lot because it allows you to move Elton Jenkins over to center, takes care of your center problem. You kind of address 2 positions with one move.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the rest of your line, would a right guard be a terrible move? No. You can always upgrade from Sean Ryan, but Rasheed Walker's been a good enough tackle. And very quietly, Zach Tom was the top right tackle in all of football last year.
Right.
So do you need offensive line? No. You still have Jordan Morgan. You still have Jacob Monk. You do have plenty of depth there as well. You can look at pass rush. Do you look at secondary? Like I said, you kind of look at how the board falls. But you'll still look at fit of secondary, especially, and actually pass rush too, because you look at, there's going to be edge guys that do go after Green Bay picks potentially at 23. That you also have to remember that these guys in the primary defense, a lot of college teams right now are 3-4s, which
Mm-hmm.
is a different defense and different assignment and different responsibilities than what the Packers play in a 4-3 or a 4-2-5. So, without further ado, Dylan, we're going to do a 7-round Packer mock draft. I do have it set for fast. There's no timer once we pick. Teams obviously have 10 minutes to start round 1. It does go down as the draft goes on. But with that said, let's get this rolling.
Let's do it.
So it's going to start here. A lot of these familiar names are going to go. We do have an option, a couple trade offers. This one, for what we look at the board here, I know you can see my screen, nobody else can.
Mm-hmm.
If it'd be pick 23 to Buffalo and pick 159, which is a 4th round pick, I believe, maybe a 5th, for picks 30 and 62. This one's tempting.
It is tempting.
I'll say my piece here, and I'll let you also in on the decision, and we can look at these other offers. If I'm Brian Gutekunst and this gets offered and how the draft board currently looks, these top players right now on the board, Colston Loveland, who's a tight end, Derek Harmon, a defensive tackle out of Oregon, Michael Williams out of Georgia, Josh Simmons, offensive tackle out of Ohio State, Tyler Booker, who's a guard out of Alabama, and Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss. Let me hide. I think I can hide this quick.
Mm-hmm.
If we look a little further down the prospect line here, trying to see, this should let me scroll. You start looking at the different positions that could be fits for Green Bay. We look at the offensive end. Emeka Egbuka, which is more of a slot receiver. I don't really love that pairing. Defense. James Pierce is a solid option. They did bring him in for a top 30 visit. James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Relative athletic score 9.4. Did play a lot better of a 3-4 and projects more of a 3-4 than a 4-3, but he can fare well, according to the scouting report. Trey Amos is another defensive back that Packers, I believe, brought in for a top 30 visit. Wouldn't be terrible. Played both FCS and FBS level. So those are kind of your top options out on the board right now. Our other trade offers, Miami also 23 and 159 for Green Bay. You get pick 48, 98, 116, and 2 picks next year. I'm probably not taking that one.
Mm-hmm. I think I'd agree.
And then Arizona pick 23 and 250 for pick 47 and 78. I don't like that one either. I'll leave it up to you, Dylan. You saw what was available. Some of these guys that you still might be able to get at 30 if you choose to take that, and then you do get another 2nd round pick basically out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But do you want to do this trade, or do you want to take who we have available?
I think we reject the trade.
And I'm going to hide it again just to show you the board. If we're doing this, who do you have in mind? Why are you wanting to pick at 23 as opposed to 30?
I think, well, my gut says you take the highest and the best fit for a defensive back. Or you take, I think you want to take the highest rated defensive player that we decide, or the position that we decide we need. So I don't know how you feel on the defensive line, or at the linebacker position, or at the defensive back position. What do you think we need the most? If you feel like we could get a guy at 30 rather than 23, then there's no real harm in getting the extra 2nd round pick. But
yeah, if I'm looking at this, again, typically do I trade out of these? No, I usually I'll stay put at 23.
right.
But if I'm looking at how this board has fallen, I'm looking at Derek Harmon, stud of a defensive tackle. Dude is at he's 6'4", 313. Reliable both pass rush and stout run defender. There is a bit of a need there. It's probably not your most pressing part of the pass attack.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but he does play high. So, do you probably get him at 30? I say no, but I also don't think you're necessarily in love with him. Um, Walter Nolan, kind of that same conversation. He's young. He's got the frame for it. Um, yeah, that's kind of your top defender. I think James Pierce can fall to you at 30, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the guy that they had their eyes on. Brought him in for a top 30 visit. Um, if I'm looking at DBs, I'm looking at either Trey Amos or Maxwell Hairston, who is going to be in Green Bay. Makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of buzz around him going to Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
He is a little thin. That has bothered some people, and he's not necessarily as a tackler, but he's a guy that makes a lot of sense. Benjamin Morrison, who if you're looking at my screen, Dylan,
Yep.
does have the 59th ranking. He was a number one corner prior to an injury in 2024. That's a guy that
It's
he's kind of
promising.
fallen down the board, but he was a big piece for the Irish the last 2 seasons. Um, so
Well, I mean, if you're happy, if you can get one of those guys at 30, you don't think all of them are going to disappear before you hit the 30. I mean,
yeah, like I said,
I don't
there's
think it's
there's
a bad offer.
there's a serious temptation here. I like having another pick at 62. And I think that's what's kind of really getting me here.
Yeah, the extra second rounder. You know what? I changed my mind. Take it.
All right, so we're gonna accept that trade, and how the board is falling. There's another trade here. Not even gonna really look at it. We're gonna reject that right away.
Yeah.
How the board fell, probably about as bad as possible, if we're being
Yeah,
honest.
wasn't great.
The Bills trade up, get that edge rusher, Michael Williams. Tyler Booker goes to the Vikings. Tight end goes to Houston. James Pierce does get nabbed at 27. Walter Nolan goes at 28. So,
Trey Amos at 26. I don't know if you mentioned him or not.
yeah, I did.
Okay.
So how the board falls then does leave Derek Harmon from 18. I think that might be our way to go here.
Yeah, send it.
So with the 30th pick in the NFL draft, the Green Bay Packers select Derek Harmon, defensive tackle, University of Oregon. Which, if I'm looking at this again, he's a redshirt junior, ranks as an eventually a plus starter per NFL Network. Excellent blend of size, length, and strength. Really, his only thing is he's a little top heavy, can get behind blocks. So I think we did a really good job.
We took a risk and it didn't turn out too poorly.
One NFC North, and this is from NFL.com. An NFC executive says, reminds me a lot of a young Cam Hayward, but bigger. So that's definitely a good spot to be in for the conversation. So that takes us to pick 54. A couple offers coming in. Pick 61 and 128 from Washington. That means you'd be going back-to-back 61 and 62 with what you already traded.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really love the other trade that came in from the 49ers, so just pick one.
Yeah, I mean,
and some picks for
that
year.
one for sure.
If we're looking at how the board currently looks and what the Packers need, in terms of the receivers out there, there's a couple here that I like that I think we can probably actually get at 62. Jack Beck is a phenomenal receiver, 6'1", can play outside and in the slot, tracks the ball well. Out of TCU, could be a strong receiver too. One of the receivers I've been really on in this draft process has been Alec Aomaner out of Stanford. Jaden Higgins is an incredible fit as well. Plays at 6'4", 214, scored really well in his relative athletic score. There is some great receiving talent here. Defensively, we took our defensive tackle last go around. If we're looking at D-back, Benjamin Morris is still around. If I'm looking at kind of how the rest of this falls, if we're looking at cornerback, not really in love with a lot of these other than, further down here. I really do like Noel Williams. I've made no hiding on that. He's a 6-foot corner, All-American first team. Was one of the country's leaders in interceptions this last season playing for Cal. But that'd be a way overpick here at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Team needs, according to Pro Football, need an edge, cornerback, wide receiver, defensive tackle, which we did already address, linebacker a little further down as well. So, Dylan, I'm going to let you, is there a case you have for one guy or another? Keeping in mind that we do pick again in 62, so in about 8
Right.
picks.
Well, unless we accept that trade.
Yeah, in that trade.
61 and 62 if we accept the trade here.
Right. Our next picks, we'd have 62, 87, and 124 as of right now. So I'm going to ask, like I said, is there anybody that you feel like you need to pick here at 54 that won't be at 62 or 61 for that sake?
Well, you listed off a lot of receivers. I don't see 3 of those wide receivers dropping off in the next 7 picks. You just really got to decide. I think you can get a guy that you want at 61 and 62, but is pick 128 worth it? I mean, that's another pick coming up here somewhat shortly. So,
Yeah, like I said, here the case I would make here is to take Benjamin Morrison and to use this pick, address your receivers with 62. I really like Benjamin Morrison.
Yeah, I'm on board with it.
He plays at 6 foot. Kind of grades out as a starter as a sophomore. He did start the first 6 games, 20 tackles, 4 pass breakups. Then he missed time with the injury. 2023 led the team to 10 pass breakups, 12 games, 11 starts, 31 tackles, 3 interceptions, 3 tackles for loss. He's a patient reading routes, off-man coverage, squeezes deep routes, good makeup, speed to close. Outstanding ball production. Weaknesses, he does lack arm length, from what NFL Network's Pete Zerland says. One of the best man cover corners. I think this is where we go.
Sure, I'm on board with it.
So we're going to go Benjamin Morrison, cornerback Notre Dame here. How that falls, do you have another trade offer? Don't really like this one. 62 and 124 for 91. Yeah, we're not doing this one either.
Yeah, I agree. Reject them both.
So picking again here at 62, if we're looking at the board outright, offensively, we look at the receivers. All 3 of those guys I had mentioned popping up here. Higgins, Jack Beck, and Alec Ayamaner. I'll kind of click on each one of them so you can read a little bit about them as we go here, Dylan. Jaden Higgins transferred from Eastern Kentucky to Iowa State. Foot speed to separate. Kind of lacks some of the flexibility, but he plays at 6'4". Plays as a bit, makes his money with strong hands, chain moving conversion, and explosive yards after catch. Relative athletic score 9.63, which, that's huge.
Yeah, that's up there.
Trying to see if I can find any of his measurables, but I believe Green Bay also brought him in for a top 40 or top 30 visit. He's also a guy that played at the Senior Bowl, which has been big thing for Packers front office the last few years. Ran a 4.47 40. If we're looking at possible comps, smooth but physical in his routes, creates pockets of separation. Won't outrun a lot of corners, but his size and ball skills are going to catch him balls. We look at Jack Beck. Relative athletic score, he stands 6'1", 214, 9.51 for him. Trying to see if I can find another scouting report from what you can read here as well. Played for TCU. Grades roughly the same, 6.34 according to NFL Network. Didn't run at the combine. Started his career with LSU before transferring to TCU. Also had a big Senior Bowl, so this is another guy that kind of works in there. Might not have separation speed, but he's a big, strong receiver, outstanding ball skills, physical at the top of his route, and rebounders feel for owning catch space. Hands are sticky and strong with elite catch focus. He's a fearless and physical as a runner, but needs more nastiness as a run blocker. And then Alec Ailmanor, who, like I said, this is one guy that I've really liked a lot. 9.71, relative athletic score, 6'1", 206. Large catch radius, impressive ball skills, good speed for size. I remember, seeing some of his highlight tapes. He does remind me a lot of Jordy Nelson. Just even some of the play routes that he ran at Stanford, really runs and kind of rolls into kind of that waggle post route that Jordy Nelson used to run. Ran a 4.44 40. As a redshirt sophomore at Stanford, 63 catches, 831 yards, tied for 6 receiving touchdowns, started all 12 games. Depending on where you see him and what draft you see him in, can vary. Willing run blocker, which I know does go a long way, but if we're looking at receiver for Green Bay, this is kind of where fit matters to me. They have possession guys, they have slot guys. They really need that vertical downfield threat. If we're going with receiver here, I'm probably thinking Higgins or Ailmanor. I wouldn't totally rule out defense. We went corner. We went with a defensive tackle. We have not really looked at edge yet. If we're looking at the board, Princely. Oh fuck, I don't even know how to pronounce that, but
out of Ole Miss.
Yeah. Guy who has gotten sacks, 17.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons. Could struggle against the run due to play strength, but has the flexibility to acquire leverage, spatial IQ to thrive in gap pursuit. Best role early would likely be as a pass rusher in a base 3-4, so that's a big thing there. You can kind of feel that, we do pick again at 87. If I'm looking at receiver versus edge rush, I feel like receiver is probably a bigger fit here. Personally,
I think I agree.
And which receiver are you thinking here? I'll let you make the pick.
I liked Higgins just because of his size.
Sure.
But I did like what you had to say about Ailmanor as well. So, I guess whoever you think is best between those two, I think I'll back you up on.
We're gonna go Higgins here. I've gone Ailmanor in a lot of my mock drafts that I've done individually, but I'm feeling Higgins here. So then as we sit and wait for our next pick, for what it's worth, Jack Beck did just go at 86 to Cleveland. If we're looking at how the board fell, A.O. Manor actually still on the board.
Mm-hmm.
Position you could double down on if you really want. There is an edge rusher here, Jordan Birch out of Oregon, which we could go double down on our Oregon defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Birch, a former Feldman Freak at 6'4", 279. Birch distinguished himself with the career best season at Oregon in 2024, amassing 8.5 sacks, 11 tackles for loss, and 6 pass breakups. Operational development has always been the question, but 2024 was a massive step in the right direction for him, according to the scouting report. As his size, 6'4", 279. Uncommonly explosive and fluid in his lower half. Speed to power, demolish anchors one-on-one, stun against inside blockers. Still trending up with his refinement, but Birch's skill set offers both schematic and alignment versatility. He has a high upside investment.
Yeah, I'm good at edge if you want to go edge.
I'm just gonna throw this out here. So if we're looking at corner, we did go get Benjamin Morrison already.
Mm-hmm.
Just trying to see some of these other guys. If we're looking at corner, which is still a need, especially given the possibility of the Jair Alexander possibility of a trade or being released. I'm saying this just because I know how this algorithm has worked. Noel Williams has been one of my big draft crushes throughout.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be the first to say that. The dude, like I said, just an impressive man corner, but he does get beat a lot. He does have 17 career penalties. So, I'm leaning edge here. But there are some good corner prospects, but I do think one of these might fall to us again.
Yeah, I think we're up next at, does that say 124? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we could probably go a corner at 124.
And get someone solid.
Go with a solid edge here at 87.
I do want to note that the Oregon defense has translated well to Jeff Haff's system. Obviously, we all saw what Evan Williams did this last season at corner and safety. But yeah, I think we're going to double down here. I think we go Jordan Birch.
Yep, I'm with you.
All right, so getting some value here. He was a 75th ranked prospect. We're picking him at 87. Can't really complain about that.
Noel Williams just fell.
Damn. So that brings us to pick 124. If we're looking at best overall available, another defensive tackle, another line. There is a linebacker, Smail Mondon, who when I first kind of started looking at some of this draft coverage, he has been pretty impressive. He's a name that I've taken a few times here and there. Obviously there is some hesitancy given, what you had out of Quay Walker and the inconsistency at times.
Mm-hmm.
But kind of the same type player. He's fast. He's 6'2", 224, relative athletic score of 9.42. Stands, like I said, 6'3". Played at 235 last season. 212 total tackles over the last 4 seasons with Georgia. Did miss time in 2024 due to a foot injury, which did impact his draft stock. Stays tight in coverage and disrupts routes at the NFL. Demonstrating he's a strong tackler with speed and range to pursue rushers. Georgia linebacker has a skill set to make him adaptable in a variety of schemes. So he's an option. The other one I'd kind of look at here is Kobe Bryant, which is crazy to say just in and of itself. Cornerback out of Kansas, 6 foot 180, natural ball hawk, had 8 interceptions and 12 pass breakups over the last 2 seasons. Known as a ball hawk, does have some questions surrounding his lighter frame, but in a heavy off-man zone schemes, he could survive and thrive for what Pro Football Sports Network says. I know Green Bay does want to go more man, but I think when you start kind of, you get to this point in the draft, we're in round 4. if we're looking at what Green Bay needs, it could be corner depth. There's obviously some concern, especially with a potential trade or release of Jair Alexander looming. And even if you do keep him and manage to bring him kind of back into the fold, given everything that's happened, you're looking at a guy who, quite frankly, has had some difficulty staying healthy the last 2 seasons. So the depth is a good thing to have. But if you look at linebacker, you're looking at really 3 guys who played last season in consistent levels. I mean, you have you lost Eric Wilson to free agency. So that's a big loss. Just depth-wise, you still do have Edgerrin Cooper. You do still have Quay Walker. You also do return Isaiah McDuffie, so you do have your 3 starting linebackers. Then you look at bench guys. You have Tyron Hooper, who the Packers drafted last year, and a lot of people really liked in the preseason, but an injury kind of stopped his progress before he could really get to be a role player. And then they did bring back Christian Welch, who was outside the Green Bay organization last season, but was a key Packers special teamer and role guy. So you really have 5 linebackers, so you do probably need some depth there yet.
Yeah, you just gotta decide what depth is more important at this point. I guess my gut says cornerback, but feel free to agree or disagree.
Yeah, if I'm looking at the defense and looking at the cornerback spot, like I said, Kobe Bryant pops up first as he's the best available. They could double down on Louisville cornerbacks with Jair Alexander and this Quincy Riley, who I have on the screen now.
Mm-hmm.
Both versatility to play man and zone. Plays excellent anticipation, allowing him to jump routes to start passing lanes. I'm looking at Mondon. I'm really liking some of the things I'm seeing with him too.
Well, our next pick is until 198, so
right, and
whoever we don't pick is probably going to go off.
Right. If I'm looking down further at the board, I guess kind of looking at who do I think next time we kind of get around to picking would be available. I'm really leaning towards Mondon here.
I will support your decision. If he's a better linebacker than Kobe is a cornerback, then it makes sense.
I think we're going to go Mondon here, but I want to look at one more thing here on my end while I do hem and haw, because I could really see this going either way. I'm not really married to one or the other here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we're gonna go Mondon.
I'm on board.
All right. So, as you kind of mentioned, we did trade that 159 to get to pick 62. So we do have some time here to pick again, and we're back on the clock at 198. 3 more picks left, and kind of looking at how the board has fallen. Kind of just reviewing our picks here so far as well. We've gotten a defensive tackle, we've gotten a corner, we have a receiver, an edge rusher, and a true linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
So we've really been a versatile draft here. So we're kind of, we're looking at 3 more picks to kind of fill some of those holes the Packers have. As we start kind of getting into this conversation, do you start looking at a second receiver, or do you start looking at maybe an offensive lineman? Do you start looking at what the defense needs? There are plenty of options here at defensive tackle
Mm-hmm.
to really bolster that front. Another unit that is a little slim in terms of depth. So I guess in that sense, I feel pretty good about what we have at linebacker. Not really too worried about safety, although Hunter Muller is a big safety who could help out the defense and give some more flexibility as well.
Mm-hmm.
And possibly move more towards the slot. But as we look at the board, this Nick Nash, receiver out of San Jose State, does lack elite top end speed. So we kind of, it's kind of interesting when you get into like rounds 4 and below, how you start going from reasons to pick a guy to reasons not to.
Right.
I'm not really loving the receiver options here.
Yeah, and I wasn't really loving the cornerback options either. So
although I say that and I see Arian Smith, first class level speed, arguably the fastest receiver in the country. Below average career production. He only had one season with over 200 receiving yards, but didn't really see the field until this last season. High drop rate, but you tell him to run straight.
Seems like he can do that. He had a high athletic score too, didn't he?
Yes. So
he's an option.
I kind of look at the other thing kind of start considering here is names. I'm looking at Tonka Hemingway. Really bolster up the defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of where I'm leaning here.
Yeah, I can get on board with that.
All right, so we're gonna go Tonka Hemingway.
Now we're at what, 237 and 250?
Yes. So we are at pick 237. And if we're looking at kind of the best available, another D tackle, offensive tackle, center, D tackle, cornerback. Let's see what his situation is. 6'1". Started all 4 years. Gave up 5 touchdowns past 2 seasons. Only 11 career pass breakups, 2 interceptions, both of which came this year. Physical corner. A sound tackler.
16 penalties in his career.
Well, we're way down there with the edge rushers.
Yeah.
Just get off that one.
We're looking for a diamond in the rough right now.
Do we triple down on Oregon?
It could be.
Oh, here we go. 6'2", 186. Upside and press. Technique can be inconsistent.
That can be worked on, though. That's all.
This is our improvable stuff. I like this a lot.
I like him. Yeah, I like him too.
We're gonna go Zamaya Vaughn, cornerback out of Utah. We are
I like him
here a little bit, but I really like that scouting. So then
250.
Pick 250. We're looking at the rest of the board here. You're kind of taking a flyer on a guy at this point anyway.
Right.
You could go with another receiver. I don't hate the idea of going with a running back here at this point. Given the Packer, you lose A.J. Dillon, who didn't play this last season.
Mm-hmm.
Running back room really looks, Josh Jacobs obviously is going to be the main guy.
Right.
You're hoping for Marshawn Lloyd to get past his bad luck of injury. And then you have 2 undrafted guys that you've kind of rolled with this last season in Chris Brooks and Emmanuel Wilson. who Chris Brooks is actually huge for this team down the stretch. But, that's an option. Do you maybe look at an offensive lineman just to see, at a guy that might be able to give you some extra depth? I'm probably looking interior versus exterior.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that was a big boy.
Mm-hmm. So, what are you thinking here with our final pick, Dylan?
I'm good with offensive line. I think it's never gonna hurt,
Right.
Again, we're at a 250th pick. It's kind of if he works out, great. If he doesn't, who would have guessed?
Right.
He's not a bad option at 6'7", 309. Thomas Perry, he looked like he had a pretty good. Yeah, this guy seems like he's got a pretty good.
I think this is going to be our pick. We're going to go with
2,500 career college reps. That's nuts.
Left
guard, right guard, and right tackle.
Good second level blocker. He does struggle with bigger, more physical defensive linemen who can drive him back and take advantage of his mediocre pass technique, but played left guard, right guard, and tackle, so very versatile. 6'5", 309, relative athletic score 9.5. I think this is our guy.
Yeah, send it. I like him.
Right. So Connor Colby out of the University of Iowa brings us to, as our final pick, which we go Derek Harmon, defensive tackle out of Oregon, Benjamin Morrison, cornerback out of Notre Dame, Jaden Higgins, receiver out of Iowa State, Jordan Birch, the edge rusher out of Oregon, Smail Mondin, linebacker Georgia, and Taka Hemingway, defensive tackle out of South Carolina, Zamiah Vaughn, cornerback Utah, and Connor Colby, offensive guard out of Iowa.
I'm
honestly,
pleased.
If the board falls that way, that'd be a solid draft.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that.
So that is our official Root for Wisconsin mock draft.
I got a screen grab of it, so we'll see how it turns out when we come back next week.
Yeah, I will post this tomorrow at some point, or I guess today at this point in time. But with that, Dylan, we are just about wrapped up here. Usually we would do our Ticket Smarter ticket of the week, but let's be honest, it's probably the draft. I mean, you can go to the Bucks if you want to, but draft is free to go to. Come to Titletown, see what the best the Packers have to offer in the Green Bay area. Is my pitch. So with that, I guess I'll kind of wrap up here with, besides the draft, what do you got in mind? What are you rooting for in the next week or so?
Oh my God!
I'm not gonna lie to you. I think next week, I know how our recording schedule or lack thereof is gone. Ideally, I'd love to start going back to week, but I know that's not always most feasible.
We're gonna do our best.
So, upcoming, what do you got?
Milwaukee Bucks, please get some wins. Please put up a fight. Please do your best as an organization to show Giannis Antetokounmpo that you want him to stay in Milwaukee. Please. So, not only the draft, I'm excited for this to come to Green Bay. It's really cool for something like this to come to our area. But I'm always going to be a basketball guy over football. So go Bucks.
All right, my end. I'm really looking at the draft. That's obviously going to consume me for the next 3 days. So, that's going to be that. And like I said, just hopefully the Brewers pitching staff gets healthy. They've been on such a good run here with getting production on the guys. I mean, Sal Frelick is looking like a potential MVP. Christian Yelich is starting to hit the ball again. He had a grand slam last night. I really can't complain about anything that's going on there. So, all right, for Justin, Ramsey, Shauna not here. Sean, I'm Eric. That's Dylan. Episode 166. Route 4 Wisconsin 2025 draft specials in the books. We're out. See ya.
See you.